I am a god. Okay.
Comedy horror Jennifer's Body is a case study in how camera framing, subversive writing, and self-aware characters can bring a female point of view to an overwhelmingly male genre.
My skin is breaking out and my hair is dull and lifeless. God, it's like I'm one of the normal girls.
Unfortunately, this enterprise was not something people widely celebrated or even got in 2009. When Jennifer's Body premiered, it was more or less a flop. Director Karyn Kusama and screenwriter Diablo Cody hoped that the horror comedy would appeal to teenage girls.
I'm on a stat. What's up, Vagisil?
But the studio insisted on marketing star Megan Fox's sex appeal to men, a strategy that yielded disappointing box office sales and largely negative, even misogynistic reviews.
There was a time when it was painful for me to talk about Jennifer's Body because, you know, that movie was a commercial failure.
Yeah.
And I was savaged personally.
Then over the years, Jennifer's Body quietly became a cult classic, loved by fans of genre films, and gaining public praise for addressing predatory male behavior long before this was reckoned with in the mainstream.
Can it even be considered a cult following at this point? I feel like it's broken through where it's just a lot of people are obsessed with this movie.
Jennifer's Body cemented its place in feminist horror by reclaiming the revenge story formula for women, to focus less on what's done to them and more about what they feel as they navigate a world that doesn't really value them.
There's always that girl. They love to show it off, but they do not give it up.
Here's our take on how Jennifer's Body put forward a female gaze in horror before most people were ready to care. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified about all our new videos. While this movie is named after the body of Fox's character,
I feel so scrumptious.
thus seeming to promise enjoyable views of it, its visuals playfully deny the male gaze. There are plenty of shots of Jennifer about to take her clothes off throughout the film, but the viewer never actually gets to see her body. In a tongue-in-cheek sequence of Jennifer emerging from a lake after feasting on a victim's body, she swims beguilingly toward the camera as if about to offer herself. As she slowly climbs out of the water, the camera frames her in the tantalizing male gaze-esque shots of isolated body parts, like her feet, as the music builds anticipation for something more. But from there, the scene quickly concludes with her fully clothed back walking away from us. The frustration of the viewer's desire to glimpse Fox subtly calls out the audience for likely objectifying her and having certain expectations about what they'll see of her, even if they haven't thought about it. The scene is also a dig at over-the-top displays of sexualized women on screen, like Fox's own famous scene in Transformers.
It looks like your distributor cap's a little loose.
The most overtly sexualized body shot of Jennifer is a silhouette as she literally devours a boy, poking fun at those who had been eager to see her in such a position. The way Jennifer is easily able to coax men into dangerous, secluded areas also seems to make fun of men who only value women for their bodies to a degree that they'll blindly throw themselves into suspicious or even dangerous situations to sleep with them.
This isn't really your house, is it?
No, baby. This is our house. Just for you and me.
Jennifer is not subtle with her hunting tactics, and even mocks them while asking them to meet her in the woods or abandoned houses.
You're gonna see your buddy really soon.
What, you mean like in heaven someday?
Nope.
In Jennifer's Body, the women are in control.
They're just boys. Morsels. We have all the power, don't you know that?
Even when Jennifer is flaunting her sexuality, the camera doesn't feel intrusive or voyeuristic towards her body. Rather, she demands its attention. Needy also maintains control over her own body in the film, the camera offering her privacy even when she's in bed with her boyfriend. Laura Mulvey, who coined the term male gaze, writes that it turns women into the bearer of meaning, not maker of meaning. In other words, women tend to be used as symbols, facilitating a male character's journey. In many horror movies, women are relegated to specific symbolic roles. The damsel in distress who needs to be rescued by a man. The promiscuous one who's there to be ogled and then killed off as punishment for her sexual activity. Or the final girl who survives the ordeals of the film because she's more pure than other victims.
Glenn, not now.
But neither Jennifer or Needy neatly fit these archetypes. Jennifer is promiscuous and gets murdered, but this doesn't make her a disposable plot device. Instead, we spend the rest of the movie with Jennifer and her post-sacrifice experience. Whereas to be unapologetically sexual like Jennifer is typically a weakness in horror movies,
there are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. You can never have sex.
Here, it's part of the character's strength.
And when I'm full, like I am right now, I'm like unkillable.
The reason she survives her attack and is transformed into an immortal demon is because her attackers were wrong about her virgin status.
Demonic transference. It's something that happens when you try to sacrifice a virgin to Satan without using an actual virgin.
And while films that are dominated by the male gaze often include slut-shaming or judgmental classmates, Needy admires Jennifer's confidence, and the boys at Devil's Kettle are in awe of her.
You wanna know if I'll go out with you?
Yeah, what?
Meanwhile, Needy might seem like a final girl, but unlike the typical example who's just trying to escape and survive, she's proactive, searching for answers.
So I did some research. Paranormal research.
And running directly into danger to save others. She concludes the film by exacting revenge on the men who sacrificed Jennifer.
I'm following this rock band. Tonight's gonna be their last show.
So she has the survival skills of a final girl with the narrative control of a lead hero.
I know where to go!
It's also not the final girl's purity that makes her strong, but rather her love for Jennifer.
Sandbox love never dies.
Their connection literally gives her the power that she needs to overcome the true villains.
If you're bitten by a demon and you live, you just might absorb some of the demon's abilities.
The movie may begin with Jennifer being attacked by a group of men, but it is Jennifer and her best friend Amanda Seyfried's Needy who have agency and narrative centrality for the rest of the film as they navigate the ups and downs of friendship, romance, and demonic forces.
I just know that I woke up and I found my way back to you.
I remember.
I couldn't bring myself to hurt you.
While the marketing of the film did hype up Needy's and Jennifer's kissing scene,
when we were shooting it, Amanda and I were making jokes that was going to be the entire trailer. It was just going to be 2 minutes of us making out.
Yeah, we both dreaded filming that because we knew that's what was going to happen.
within the actual film, the scene focuses on Needy's sexual awakening and confusion. And their final fight, which is again loaded with sexual tension, culminates in the tragic end of their friendship as Needy mourns the loss of the person she loves most. While Jennifer dies in a fairly traditional horror movie manner, being penetrated by a phallic object, the pivotal moment in the fight is actually when Jennifer stops fighting back because Needy rips her BFF necklace off. It's only when her best female friend gives up on her and withdraws her friendship that she totally dies. Jennifer's Body is a spin on the classic revenge fantasy film, where a woman, or her surrogate, seeks violent revenge on her assailant. Significantly though, when Jennifer is stabbed to death by the band Low Shoulder, the attack does not include a sexual assault.
We deliver this virgin unto thee.
And since the actual murder scene is dimly lit with distorted visual effects, little of the violence is on screen. The gore is saved for Jennifer's own killings.
By the time they found Colin in that godforsaken house, he looked like lasagna with teeth.
Thus, Jennifer's Body avoids positioning the camera in the point of view of her killer and keeps the audience on both the emotional and physical side of Jennifer. The camera is presented as Jennifer's point of view when she is in the lead singer's van before the attack. The quick camera pans and handheld shots convey not only the fear running through Jennifer's body, but the fear and confusion of being any woman trapped with a group of ill-intended men.
Are you guys rapists?
Oh, God, I hate girls.
Typically, the rape revenge film is a form of exploitation horror, a film that purposefully exploits something taboo or disgusting to better understand why we're tantalized by it. Last House on the Left, Irreversible, and I Spit on Your Grave are just a few in this genre that were initially praised for their depictions of graphic assault by the same critics that missed the point of Jennifer's Body. But it's striking that Jennifer's Body, one of the few examples actually created by female filmmakers, purposely doesn't detail the facts of the violence, and instead represents the complicated feeling of surviving an assault through Jennifer's physical transformation.
You didn't even look human.
In some ways, Jennifer appears stronger after her attack.
It's like some X-Men shit, right?
And even more mature, in that she has a more cynical yet realistic understanding of the men she used to idealize.
And those guys from Low Shoulder? Totally evil.
On the other hand, the girl she once was is literally dead. Her normal teenage life was stolen from her.
It should have killed me, but for some reason, it didn't.
Maybe it did.
And the violence at the start of the film irretrievably damages 2 women's lives.
I'm a different person now. A person who uses curse words and kicks orderlies and sees things that aren't there. A very bad, very damaged person.
The ultimate significance of the film's title is that while everyone around her is transfixed by Jennifer's body as a potent sexual object, the tragedy is that they're failing to value the person and life within that body. This leads Jennifer herself to feel empty and nihilistic inside.
I feel so empty.
Her final dialogue underlines that she, too, has come to see her body purely in sexual terms.
When Jennifer has been stabbed and says,
My tit. No. Your heart.
To me, it's like the audience is looking at her chest and seeing a tit, and what I'm trying to show them is her heart.
Near the end, as Needy feels the loss of her friend, Jennifer's mother comes in and sobs over her daughter's lifeless body, reminding us that this young person was really a vulnerable human being. After Jennifer's attack, her sole focus becomes the destruction of anyone who reminds her of her assailants, or is a symptom of a culture of violence against women, namely boys.
You're killing people. No, I'm killing boys.
She begins feasting on the boys who are most convenient for her to kill.
Does anyone know you're alive? You come with me.
And seemingly has no interest in finding her specific attackers. This symbolizes that the violence against her isn't just the fault of a single man or even group of men, but a bigger societal issue. In the killing scene, as Jennifer begs for her life,
Please don't do this. I'll do anything. I'll do anything.
the lead singer hesitates and deflects from the seriousness of the situation by singing, prolonging Jennifer's torture with twisted humor.
You make me so happy. I tried to call you before, but I lost my nerve. I used my imagination, but I was disturbed.
And the chillingly cavalier, unmoved attitude of the band underlines how violence against women has long been treated as an expected, almost mundane part of our media consumption. The story also features the glib ways certain men falsely position themselves as allies to women. Even before we had widespread critiques of the, quote, nice guy character type, the band members present as exactly that type of wolves in sheep's clothing, seemingly in touch with their emotions and thoughtful.
Listen, it's looking dangerous out here. You want to head someplace safer, like my van?
But in reality, vindictive and dangerous.
We're going to have to butcher you. And bleach you.
The bad guys aren't some supernatural force or obviously repellent monster, but your favorite boy band.
You know, I think it's really important sometimes to try and connect with our fans in the shitty areas too.
It's a message that feels especially relevant in the Me Too era, as we've become aware that it's the everyday men we interact with and maybe even look up to who we need to look a little more closely at and hold accountable.
I'm a gentleman.
Are you?
Yeah.
You might be surprised to hear that gentlemen are sometimes the worst.
When Needy confesses that she thinks Jennifer's a demon, even her seemingly sensitive boyfriend Chip tells her,
It's not that I don't believe you, I just don't believe this.
On the one hand, this half-hearted level of support is an upgrade from what men have offered in past genre films. In 1981's The Evil Dead, a film referenced in Jennifer's body.
My Evil Dead t-shirt.
The men were quick to dismiss the possessed woman in their story as crazy and hysterical. But while Chip acts more considerate, his disbelief still leads to his death, sending the message that it's not enough to be polite if you don't actually believe women.
I should have believed you.
Through all this commentary about fake nice guys and the pervasiveness of rape culture that was largely overlooked in 2009, we can see how Jennifer's body paved the way for Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman's even more direct and ruthless critiques of rape culture, which landed among audiences who have since become more ready to acknowledge these problems.
I just thought that you were...
Drunk?
Yeah.
Really drunk?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. But that's good, isn't it?
It's easy to see why the resurgence in popularity of Jennifer's Body loosely dovetailed with the rise of the Me Too movement. It's a story that ends with getting revenge on abusers. The band's actions are a direct parallel to real-life power dynamics and abuse, as they use their influence to lure a young fan into being alone with them and then exploit her body to benefit their careers.
Satan is our only hope. We're in league with the beast now, and we have to make a really big impression on him.
Megan Fox has even compared this plot point to how she felt about Hollywood at the time.
That was really reflective of, I felt like, my relationship with the movie studios at that point, because I felt like that's what they were willing to do, to literally bleed me dry, and they were willing to sacrifice me physically as long as they got what they wanted out of it.
A Vice article by Frederick Bleekert argues that if Jennifer's Body came out now, it would likely be a winning formula with horror movie critics in the Me Too era.
Perhaps this film is finding more of a sympathetic audience now because it is dealing with themes of like consent, assault, like male abuse of power.
So why wasn't Jennifer's Body interpreted as a quirky, innovative feminist revenge comedy in 2009? Kusama and Cody made the movie for teenage girls, but both have spoken openly about how 20th Century Fox mismarketed the film, basing its campaign on catering to the same male gaze that the movie was challenging.
The studio had a very strong, unshakable belief that this movie needed to be marketed to young men, specifically.
Which came because of me, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
The advertising for Jennifer's Body looked more like a sex comedy than a horror movie. At one point, executives even suggested that Fox host an amateur porn site as a promotion. Cody pointed out that this approach resulted in both turning off the girls the movie was written for and disappointing the guys who did show up. The lasting impact of Jennifer's Body hasn't been felt by the college-aged men that the studio screen tested with.
The coveted, precious white male 18 to 24 demographic was there.
It's resonated with young women, including ones who came to the film since its release.
People assume, like they assumed, that most of my fan base is male, and it's not true, it's young girls.
The other problem that the film met with when it came out was the critical establishment. While some reviewers did appreciate Jennifer's Body at the time, the reception from this male-dominated industry was largely negative. Given that even today, men make up 83% of film critics, the inability of most men to relate to the film's premise clearly hurt its reputation. Roger Ebert gave the film a somewhat positive review, but showed a failure to grasp its essence, deeming it Twilight for boys, and completely omitting Jennifer's attack from his recap of why the sexy and popular cheerleader goes bad. Bleekert theorizes that audiences may have been more willing to accept a difficult and complicated message from a horror comedy if it had been positioned as a more art house film in a subgenre that some call elevated horror. The elevated horror term gained traction in the 2010s with well-regarded indie horrors like It Follows, Get Out, and Midsommar, which contain astutely observed allegories of societal issues.
Your existence will be as a passenger, an audience. You'll live in a sunken place.
While horrors like this have existed for decades, there was no 2000s equivalent term or marketing category for Jennifer's Body to sell itself as. Still, it's important to recognize that there were plenty of fans of Jennifer's Body before the Me Too resurgence, including young women, sexual assault survivors, and bona fide genre film fans. Many LGBTQ+ fans, particularly bisexual women, cite Jennifer's Body as a pivotal moment for bisexual representation on screen.
I thought you only murdered boys.
I go both ways.
Cody appreciates the recent boost the film's received, but feels that tying it too closely to the Me Too movement may distract from the fact that none of these issues are new. She said, maybe on a zeitgeisty level it's timely, but it's a tale as old as time. Even if mainstream conversations didn't always have the language or much motivation to confront rape culture, feminist writers and creators have been making media about women's lives, bodies, and politics for a long time, often without getting much credit or applause for it. The renaissance of Jennifer's Body isn't about who did or didn't like the film in 2009, or whether or not you like the film at all. It's about centering the voices of those who have first-hand experience with oppression or marginalization when creating and valuing media about that oppression.
It was definitely like a sort of autobiographical for me writing that movie. And no one has ever actually asked me that, so it feels cathartic to talk about.
Without narratives like Jennifer's Body, we may not have gotten films like Promising Young Woman or Coralie Farjah's Revenge. So the film's journey is a reminder that it's important to share your unique point of view, and there may be more people out there relating to it than you know.
PMS isn't real, Needy. It was invented by the boy-run media to make us seem crazy.
This is The Take on your favorite movie, shows, and culture.
Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us.
Please subscribe and never miss a take.